who else we got? Jason1331, good to see you. Lawrence, what's happening? Hexstar, good to see you. Open-Minded Clarity, Michael Lastuca, Big Bad Jim. Virgil's returned. Oh, wow, Virgil's here. Now we can officially start the show. And let's see, who else has returned? Noble Patrick, good to see you. Mr. Man Mister, the Triple M. Yes, we're happy that you're here. All right, let's see. I think we're caught up. Rich Hilke's here, everyone. The Rich Hilke. All right. Anybody want to see our guest's beautiful hair? There it is. There it is. Katie Griboski. Hey, Chefist, what's going on? How's your mustache? Please let us know. Vince Proto, good to have you here. Chad Smith, I'm Chad Smith. Rocket Niner, what's happening? Irish Lincoln, good to see you. The gorgeous Jenny, thanks for coming on in. All right, a good way to support this show, everyone, is through the Super Chat. Thank you to Michael and Apollo for kicking that off. Also, a great way to support what we do on a nightly basis here on Spaced Out Radio is, if you're new, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. We are literally live here 7 days a week on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check us on out. We really appreciate that. We're going to get going here in about 7 seconds. We are going to rock and roll your pants off talking ET and everything tonight. Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Oh, we got a great one for you tonight. Katie Griboski is Colorado MUFON State Director and serves on the Colorado Board of Directors. She is a star researcher, part of the SAT team investigations for MUFON. She is team lead administrator for MUFON's Mars team. Apparently she's going to Mars, but with 2 R's, not 1. She also conducts her own independent investigations and research outside of MUFON and likes to present her findings. She spends a lot of time traveling to archives for research and to conduct interviews. She is the author of Letters of Love and Light, 4 Decades of UFO Encounters, Experiences, and Sightings Shared with Ufologist R. Sprinkle Ph.D. She also holds a Bachelor of Science in Visual Communications and owned her own graphic design studio, Design Junkie. Katie's website is katiegraboski.com. Katie, I've wanted to do this interview with you for a couple of years. Probably didn't even know who the heck I was, and you know what? But you know what? We snuck you in. We baited the hook. You bit. Damn it, we set the hook, and now you're here. Thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. What a pleasure it is for us to have you here.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. I would have come sooner.
Yeah, I'll blame the booking people for that. No, I'm teasing. They do a great job around here. Katie, for a lot of people who may not know who you are, how did you get involved with UFOs?
Well, from early on, I was born in Illinois. And my grandparents lived in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And so when I was really young, we had 2 sightings. My grandfather had a sighting over Lake Como in Wisconsin that I heard about as a young girl. And then my family and I in Richmond, Illinois, going back from my grandparents' house, had a couple close encounter sightings of an oblong craft. We moved out to Colorado in 1970. Kind of put all that on the back burner, but from 1975 to 1978 out on a ranch in Elbert County, my sister and I and our family experienced some really high strangeness events. But, like most people, I focused on my family and career. I raised 5 kids, and went to school, got my degree, and I didn't start revisiting these strange things that happened to me till 2012. So I joined MUFON as a field investigator right out of the box in 2012 to kind of try to find answers to what had happened to me all those years ago.
Did you ever think that this was where your life would take you, chasing UFOs?
Not at all. No. And I kind of had, a lot of paranormal events happen to me as well. So actually in like 29, I really started getting into the ghost hunters and watching, Grant and Jason, and went out to the St. Augustine Lighthouse and did the Stanley Hotel, and kind of was really looking to, what are these shadow figures in our room, and, what is all this paranormal stuff that's happening? So I kind of started there, and then I'm like, what was all that stuff on the ranch? And that led me to the UFO side of things. And once you jump in that rabbit hole, oh my gosh, you never really get out of it. And I think it's fair to say, my husband knows, asked me, it took me years to become even a believer. I was a skeptic for a long time because I like research and documents. I like proof, tangible things I can hold in my hand. And so I'd be like, I don't know if there's anything to any of this. But at the same time, I had experienced so much that there just had to be. But now I've turned the corner. Maybe 2 years ago, I turned the corner, and I'll get into why a little later.
Oh, let's just go there now. You can't tease us like that. Why did you go from skeptic to chaser of the woo?
It's actually, the deeper I got into this and the more people I met, the more interesting people I met, I'm like, wow, these people wouldn't be involved in the phenomenon if there wasn't something to it. I don't think they're all disinformation officers out there. I think there's a lot of secrets being kept. And if we didn't have it, if they weren't involved, we wouldn't have a phenomenon kind of thing. So it's almost more like the secrets and the people that are involved keep me just as fascinated as the UFO sightings we get turned in to MUFON. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I absolutely am fascinated. See, I took a different turn coming into this. I didn't believe in this. I'd always believed in UFOs. I saw my first UFO in 1994. And I always said as a kid, I wanted to see three things before I die. I wanted to see a UFO, I wanted to see a ghost, and I wanted to see Sasquatch. And I've been blessed, I've seen all three. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't get into this as a researcher, because I'm not a researcher. I'm a journalist by trade, and I'm an experiencer like a lot of other people. Until my own experiences started happening in my late 30s, and we're going back 10 years now, and I'll tell you, to this day, it freaks me out in how far down the rabbit hole you go. I remember my spiritual guru, a gentleman named Pascal, who I absolutely love and adore. I remember sitting with him one day, and he's like, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And I said, let's just go. What a bloody mistake that was. And I mean that in a good way, because it doesn't stop. It really doesn't. There's always a trail to follow. How do you follow all these trails?
That's a really good question. It's hard to stay grounded, and it's such a delicate balance to me. And especially, getting out here now and speaking on different shows and podcasts and that, it's really important to me to have that scientific researcher side. But at the same time, I've experienced some really incredible things that, years ago, people would be like, wow, she's, really out there in some ways, just like the fairy lights you see when you're out there doing paranormal investigations. Like, what are fairy lights? And I didn't even believe in that until I was out there at the cemetery. And sure enough, we see these balls of light in the bushes. And out here in the Rocky Mountains, especially, we don't have fireflies. So it wasn't that. They're just like little balls of energy. And I just couldn't believe I saw that. So, I think it's important. There's so many different avenues you can get into, just like you said, Sasquatch and shadow people and the high strangeness UFOs and ETs encounters and abductions, that it's really important, I think, to find your area of interest or your niche, so to speak. Otherwise, you're just, like me, I'm kind of like the movie Up, Doug the dog. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And that's my problem. I'm trying to write my second book, and I just fly off in a topic, and then I want to go dig and research that, and I'm just like this all the time. So finding time to stay grounded, and focusing on one aspect is pretty important and something I need to work on and get better at for sure, because I'm all over the place a lot of the time.
For the record, my dog named Doug is lying right in front of my desk here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't know why he does that. Well, I don't know why. We're getting a little bit of an echo that's coming from my side here, so I do apologize. We'll try and nip that in the butt here pretty quickly. But for you, when you started opening up that these experiences were real and the stories you were hearing, although there wasn't very much for evidence outside of eyewitness testimony, why did you decide, as someone with a scientific background, that you needed to start believing in these stories? Because this is part of a huge debate going on in the UFO world right now.
Well, it's interesting, especially the whole... let me back up for a minute. When I joined MUFON, and all the things that happened on the Colorado ranch, we never knew it was ever reported or investigated. We were told to never talk about it. We were threatened not to talk about it when we were kids. So in 2013, I bought a book called Hunt for the Skinwalker by George Knapp and Colm Kelleher, Ph.D. And the only thing I knew about the book was that it was about a ranch. I knew nothing about the Skinwalker Ranch at the time. Get to the chapter, other hot spots, and I start reading about our family's ranch out in Elbert County. Now, I didn't live on the ranch. I want to make that clear. My mother worked for United Airlines, and the father of the boys that lived on the ranch, two of the youngest boys and the father lived with us during the week, so they can commute to work, and the boys could go to a bigger school district, Cherry Creek School District. And the oldest son stayed with his mom and her boyfriend at the time. They were on the ranch full time. So my sister and I would go out to the ranch on weekends, taking the boys back and forth. So we did have our own encounters out there on the ranch. So as soon as I knew that this was investigated by Dr. Leo Sprinkle, that's when I decided I really needed to start believing and start really digging in and researching what happened on the ranch. And it was just one connection after another. So I immediately contacted Dr. Leo Sprinkle by mail. He's old school. He doesn't do computers or email or anything like that. And I received a letter back from him in the mail confirming, yes, this is a ranch. And he had all the files at the archives in Laramie. So I'm a 2.5-hour drive from Laramie. So I drove down there that next week. And that's when I learned that, oh my gosh, this not only was investigated by Dr. Leo Sprinkle, PhD, but Peter Van Arsdale, PhD, and Peter Van Arsdale, and I can't think of the other guy's name right now. Anyway, 3 PhDs investigated the ranch, and so from there it's just been a journey that has unlocked a lot of answers ever since.
What have you learned about yourself in this journey?
What have I learned about myself?
Yeah, deep question.
Yeah, geez. I think that I have learned that integrity is really important, that staying true to oneself is critical, to follow your passion is important. I have learned to take the time to listen to others, and nothing will make you more humble than to really dig deep. So doing this book for Dr. Leo Sprinkle, this is a pioneer in the field who spent over 40 years researching this. And I guess what I learned is we're just reinventing the wheel. There's nothing that I've come up with that people haven't come up with decades before I have. So it's made me humble and really grounded. So I've learned to really appreciate other people's pioneering work, and I appreciate the fact that we may never get answers, but it's the journey along the way, and it's the people that you meet along the way. So I think that's what I've learned.
You mentioned something very profound, which is we may not get answers. I'm a firm believer, Katie, that we're not ready for answers. There is a great portion of the population that are. especially those who are in this field, who've had their own experiences, who want to take that contact to the next level. But for the majority, like if I look at my family and I look at my sister and her fiance, there is no way they're ready. They're too wrapped up in their own little world. If I look at some of my friends down when I lived on the coast, there is no way they are ready because they're all about living their own perfect little lives. When if I look at the people surrounding me in my smaller community here, they're not ready. You know, and sure, I'm generalizing here for a lot of the people who I'm speaking about. However, for the most part, I don't think people are ready. And even people in this field, I don't think they really want that disclosure. They don't want that. They prefer the trickling out because it keeps their name relevant in the field. It keeps them getting invited to conferences. It keeps them maybe getting on Discovery Channel or History Channel documentaries. I see this, any type of disclosure, throwing a real wrench into things, not only with the main population, but the UFO population as well. What would be your thoughts on that?
I think it's really interesting that you say that, because I was just talking to somebody the other day about this very thing. How, you know, I could go listen to somebody's presentation, and I have somebody in mind here who kind of discloses some pretty unbelievable things, but I really do believe his credibility. And I actually was just in Canyon City, Colorado, and I did a presentation there for a group of people. You know, there's about 40 to 45 people there, not a large group, but in the audience was somebody that had high clearances and did some work on the F-14s through General Electric. And he disclosed some information that was pretty mind-blowing. And the funny thing is, you can learn these mind-blowing things, and then at the same time, you know, you have to go to the grocery store the next day, or I need to pick up my mom's medication, or we have to go to work and live our lives and you know, pay the bills. So even though we may be in a position where we're getting some pretty incredible information about the reality of what's happening out there, the fact of the matter is we still have to live our day-to-day lives. So it's always kind of a funny thing for me to like, well, that was mind-blowing, and wow, this really could be happening, but I need some milk, you know. So I think that's really true. On the other hand, I think a lot of people probably are ready for it. You know, I think there's a big question out there now, you know, is there an alien invasion? I mean, some people believe there may be an alien invasion. Are they all good? Are they all bad? I don't think there's a clean-cut answer. I think the answer to a lot of these phenomenon, just in UFO, not only in UFOs, but the paranormal, I think it's multi-layered. I think there's many different reasons and answers for a certain type of phenomenon. I don't think we have a simple answer for any of it.
But that's the issue that I think we have with a lot of people out there in accepting what we are going through. I mean, we're doing the dirty work. We're trying to bring those stories out. And there's not a lot of evidence out there. Let's be honest and let's be clear. Outside of testimony and the odd set of dots up on an iPhone camera. Right? I mean, there's not a lot of quality evidence. So how do we turn that into getting people to believe?
I think we just keep pounding at the door and keep asking questions and keep talking to one another, because you're right, this is an elusive phenomenon. And so by getting the commonalities weaved between people's testimonies and experiences, it just blows my mind how you can talk to one person and talk to another person. They don't know each other, yet their stories are so similar. And I know that can be explained by, you know, popular media or TVs or just pop culture in general. But one of my favorite things that turned me around and made me a believer is when I went to get the files from the ranch, there were a couple of drawings of the ET creatures that were seen out in Elbert County on the ranch. And the one, I had never seen anything like it before, so I kind of just stuck it in my back pocket. I didn't put it out anywhere because I wanted to see if it showed up anywhere else. And this is a being. His head wasn't overly large. He had almond eyes, but not the big wraparound eyes, wrinkles around the mouth, wrinkles on the forehead, a really heavy brow, but he had these strange looking tubes that came out. Okay. And so, like a year and a half later, for Colorado MUFON, we had a guest speaker, Sean Bartok, who had written a book called Flashbacks. And I was sitting in the third row just watching his presentation, and he had property that he had in Castle Rock, Colorado, not too far from Elbert County, in 1970, around the same time, a few years before the Elbert County phenomenon. And up come these two drawings that were almost identical to the drawing that I had from Elbert County. And to me, that is beyond chance.
That's weird.
I actually do, when I was at the conference in Laughlin, I made a morph of the two sketches. You couldn't get them any closer. They're almost identical to one another. And we didn't know each other. We didn't collaborate. I'm like, that's just nuts to me.
Katie Graboski is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, talking UFOs. We're going to get into the ranch, because I want to learn all about the ranch in the next half hour. Something about ranches, there's just something special about them. I'll be honest with you. In probably a year or two, I'm going to be looking for some property just so I could have my own woo ranch. That's what I want. I'm in the middle of Sasquatch territory, right along the Gold Rush Trail, which is extremely haunted. My area has a lot of UFO activity and ET encounters. I want a woo ranch. That's what I want.
I'll go out there and investigate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But do you have an encounter of a story that you have investigated over the years that has really stuck with you that you can share?
Like a MUFON? One thing I'd like to say about a lot of my MUFON cases, a lot of people believe that a lot of sightings are just nighttime sightings. Half of my unknown cases are daytime sightings. And some of my favorite cases are daytime sightings. So one of the cases that I really particularly like that sticks with me is a lady, and it's close to Elbert County. She's out here in Parker, and she's on her way to work. She sees something. At first, she's like, is that a bird? But no, it's too big to be a bird. It's at treetop level. She pulls the car over, and she's just watching this thing, and it's kind of morphing and changing shapes, and she's trying to figure out what it is. And I love witnesses that actually go down the list. Okay, is this a drone? It's not a bird. It's not and they're trying to figure it out. And all of a sudden she says two F-14s come right, and she's used to being out here at Buckley Air Force Base, which is now Space Force, but she's used to seeing these jets come in, but they're really lower than she's ever seen them. They fly right at this thing, and the thing, she said, it was like a special effects from a movie, and it just disintegrates in front of her eyes. One jet flies to the east, one flies to the west, and boom. So that's a pretty cool case.
How about for ET encounters? Because I know with MUFON, you being part of their special force that never get, those are the reports that never seem to get out. Those are the reports we want. Is there one have you ever had a close encounter with an alien? I'll ask you point blank.
Not that I remember.
Not even chasing one through a cornfield?
No.
Like someone else?
No, but Dr. Leo Sprinkle did put me under for a little bit, and it took me like a week to listen back to the tape. And to be honest with you, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of it. I've had strange memories and dream type things, like lucid dreams. But I cannot sit here and say I had an encounter with a basketball-sized blue orb that was in the corner of my room, which a couple months ago I found where I journaled about it. And I had forgotten that same night I saw that blue basketball-sized orb in my room. I had a Lego bucket. My kids were little at the time. I had a red bucket of their Legos in the corner, and that had fallen over that same night that I saw that blue orb. And then the auto light from the people's house behind us came on twice, and I just thought, oh, I hadn't remembered that. Luckily, I wrote it down. And I would say to anybody who experiences anything paranormal like that to write it down, because you forget those little details like that. But I cannot say honestly that I have seen an ET face to face. No.
Well, you're missing out.
Oh, so you have?
Oh yeah. Who hasn't? Who hasn't? You got aliens. I got aliens. Everyone's got aliens. If you don't have aliens, what the hell are you doing in this field? That's all I'm going to say. I'm teasing. I am very much teasing. KatieGraboski.com is Katie's website. She's the head of MUFON Colorado. Fantastic hair. likes a cool glass of water every now and again.
Nikola Tesla.
We're going to find out what's with this Colorado ranch. What's it all about? What's the woo that happens there on Spaced Out Radio? All right, we're clear.
Oh, I get comfortable.
You go. We're still live on YouTube, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
No, you can go. If you got to go to the bathroom or go fill your, go for a cigarette or, go kiss hubby goodnight, you go.
I might grab some ice for my
You
water.
go. You go.
Right.
We got time. Now's the time to do it. Good show so far. Very good show. Glad all of you are here. Thank you for joining us. I don't know, man. I don't know. Gorgeous Gloria from Casual Conversation, how are you? Rick Bowden, how's it going, man? The forest fires up here are starting to tame down. It seems like they're starting to get a real grasp on it. We've had some cooler weather here over the last few days. It's actually been getting down to single digits at night, so I can finally sleep again. And it's really nice. And the helicopters are all in for their nighttime because I heard the last one come in right before we started the show. And, yeah, it's kind of cool. I think they're winning. Which is nice. I don't like forest fires. I'm pretty much done with them already this year. Black Rabbit, what's going on? How you doing? Mm-hmm. Katie, do you want to break into song with me?
Sure. What song?
Whatever.
Sure.
I'm getting ribbed about my shirt here.
Zebra.
Yeah. Yeah, getting ribbed about my shirt.
We have a lot of smoke here in Colorado, too. We did a field investigator training last weekend, and usually we were up in Conifer, Colorado, and you can't even see the mountain ridges.
Yeah.
Smoke coming in from California, and fires are awful things.
I live in a small town, very small town. All right, and the other day I was coming into town, could not see the other end of town. That's how thick the smoke was.
It's awful. Not good for the lungs. Somebody said a Bruce Springsteen song.
Nope, he's banned from the show. He's horrible. Lunar Tina, what's happening? Did you buy us any groceries? Let us know. Thank you, Pam C. My shirt is apparently good, according to Pam. Elliot, what's going on? 416 Bitcoin. To you. And... oh, Kira, shame on you. Shame. Hi, lovely Lauren. What's happening? I'm going to go change my shirt next hour. I'm going to go shirtless. Just for FAP. All right. We have about 90 seconds, maybe a minute, probably closer to a minute. My mathematics isn't very good tonight. Mark Ellens, what's happening? Harvey Greensman, how are you? Welcome. He wants us to sing House of the Rising Sun. You ready?
You start.
If my shower was on, I'd be right into it.
Shower songs. I think everybody has a shower song.
Exactly.
Mine's Ebony Eyes. Do you remember that song?
No.
That's
No.
good. It's not a well-known one.
All right, we have about 40 seconds. You having fun yet?
Yeah, this is fun.
This is one of the funnest shows you've ever been on.
Yeah.
And we're only 30 minutes in. It's fast. All right, big thank you to Media Fox, Apollo, and Michael for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. It's a great way to support what we do. Elliot, it is bad. You had breakfast for lunch. You know, breakfast is for breakfast, my friend. Breakfast is for breakfast. Let's remember the rules here. Thank you, Minister Elaine. We have 5 seconds. Let's get ready to rock and roll here. Here we go, everyone. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with our guest from MUFON, Colorado. We have Katie Griboski, and we're going to get into this real interesting story about a Colorado ranch that she's going to get into deep detail about. Her website, katiegriboski.com. Katie, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, tell us about this ranch. I'm excited.
Well, so like I said earlier, this happened between 1975 and 1978. It's actually where Linda Moulton Howe got her start. She was a reporter out here in Colorado, actually lived not too far from where we lived in Englewood, Colorado. And at the time, there was a huge wave of cattle mutilations to the point where they were occurring almost daily. So out there on the ranch, so they bought the ranch in November of 1975. The ranch had sat vacant for 12 years beforehand, and there was already rumors of like lights and ships flying off the property. There were rumors of this disappearing structure that just the concrete was left there. But it was the family's dream to have this cattle ranch. So they, the first week they moved in, the first kind of activity that started was this really strange humming noise that came from it sounded like it came from underground. And it was so loud at some times that you couldn't even hear yourself talk over it. It sounded sometimes like a generator or mechanical underneath the ground, though nothing was under there. So I don't know, there's no tunnels, there's no caves. And these sounds would often come when they would see lights kind of fly in and out of the ranch. So it was 60 acres out there. It's still very rural today. But back then, there was nobody out there. Like, just the driveway was a mile to get to the ranch house. So the first memory, my sister's 6 years older than I am. And at the time, I was 9 years old. My sister was 15. And it was a spring day out in Colorado. And if you know Colorado, we get these wet, heavy snows. So it's like the sun's shining, it's nice, but there's snow on the ground kind of thing. And we were tossing the Frisbee back and forth, just, messing around, wasting time out on the property. And we looked down and we noticed that the dirt under our feet is dry. And there's wet, heavy snow. And it was this big, huge, perfect circle. And we just, at that age, we're like, wow, this is really weird. Later, as an investigator, I researched if there were any missile silos or anything like that out there at the time, and there wasn't. But when I ended up, John Schuessler gave me the briefing document from the ranch. And in this document, it actually talks about that big circle out on the ranch, and John Durr, who was the other PhD, I couldn't remember the name of earlier, they had photographs of the circle and that. So the humming sounds, these circles where nothing grew, and it would just it would be wet here but dry there, so that was really strange. And then, of course, there was the scariest night on the property. We were out there, I believe it was Betty's birthday celebration weekend. The adults were hanging out in the front room. My sister and I and the 3 boys were hanging out in the boys' room. And all of a sudden, the power goes out. The house is dark. And, of course, kids are like, get the candles, flashlights. And at that time, a big bright light comes in through the window. We're all freaked out. And this was the scariest thing. And a big, booming, electrical sounding voice is the only way that I can describe it. It basically said, we have allowed you to remain. Your friends will remain silent concerning us. Basically giving us a warning to remain quiet. And that was a really terrifying night. And that was the night when I got back to our house in Englewood that I went paralyzed. I couldn't talk properly. My mom and my sister were trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with me, and I couldn't say peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I started getting severe migraine headaches at the time. And I mean, they were like weekly, really severe migraines. And it was really interesting because a woman came up to me in Laughlin and said, if you had this close encounter with goodness knows what, that can be like mess with the electrical signals in your brain or cause paralysis or migraine headaches, because that's a symptom you hear oftentimes with close encounters are these migraine headaches. So that was a really terrifying when you're a little girl. Yeah.
I had one too.
A migraine headache?
Yeah, and about half an hour later, after I realized it wasn't a migraine, it was actually shapes pulsating in my head, I went outside on my friend's property on their 10-acre mini ranch, and there was a UFO on the ground.
Isn't that interesting?
Makes a lot of sense what you just said.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then, so as I'm researching all this, the sheriff out there at the time, if you watch Linda Moulton Howe's movie A Strange Harvest, do you remember that show?
I've never seen it.
Okay, I think you can get it online now, but it's on the cattle mutilation phenomenon. And in there, she actually interviews George Yarnell, who was the Elbert County Sheriff at the time, and also Bill Waugh, who was the undersheriff. And so Bill Waugh's wife and son live out in Florida. So I flew to Florida to interview Gene Waugh and Bill Waugh's son Keith, and got great interviews with him. And Gene pulls out this big binder full of newspaper articles from back in the day that she had saved all these years because, George Yarnell and Bill Waugh were in these articles. And she was so gracious. She's like, "Oh, Katie, take them home and make copies and da-da-da." And so from those articles, I was able to put together a list of more than 200 people and other ranches in the area that have also experienced not only cattle mutilations, but UFO sightings, strange humming noises, and all sorts of other activity. In those papers, there were articles about these menacing helicopters. And Keith Waugh and Bill Waugh talk about these choppers that would be down in the valleys, and they would take off. And we didn't know. So a big question for me was, were the helicopters in the military? Because we knew NORAD was involved, and Camp Carson, Fort Carson was involved out there. So I didn't know if they were out there mutilating cattle and testing like the soil and the water for chemicals, or if ET was out here doing something to the cattle. And it wasn't just cattle, it was horses and sheep and other animals. And I think, like I said earlier, I don't think the answer is really cut and dry. I think it was both. I think both things were happening. And I know that Christopher O'Brien and Chuck Zukowski are kind of the cattle mutilation experts. They've been researching this area for decades in the San Luis Valley and everything out here in Colorado. And I've learned a lot from them. And, according to Christopher O'Brien, a lot of the cattle mutilations do have logical explanations for them. They are solvable, but there are those handful that are still left unknown, that are high strangeness. And in one interview that I did with another rancher, she actually grew up in the area. They have streets named after her family. I mean, they were pioneers in this community. And she went to the small little high school out there. In 1978, she graduated and married and moved to Rama, Colorado, which is just right on the border of Elbert County. And they had a lot of acreage out there and a cattle ranch as well. And her husband was out on horseback checking the property for calves, and he came upon a calf that was dead. And the calf had 4 cuts in a perfect square. The top of the fur was removed, but the skin was still there. But the calf was dead. And so he gets on his horse, he goes back and he gets Sheila. Sheila and her husband go back in the pickup truck. And she said that took maybe 15, 20 minutes to get in the truck and go back to the calf. By the time they got back, that calf had been completely mutilated, organs removed, just blood in the cavity, no track marks, no helicopter sound. They're miles off the road. Nobody just pulled alongside. She said they felt like they were being watched. They said it was terrifying. They're very religious people. She felt it felt evil to her. And the cool thing was, a few weeks later, I get a message on Facebook and she found the photos. So she had photos of that calf and that mutilation. And then she also had photos of calves that were attacked by coyotes. So you could see the difference of what the mutilated calf looked like as compared to just a coyote that jumps on the back of a calf and tears it up. So I have those photos, and it's really cool and fascinating to have that as a comparison. So a lot of mutilations were happening, and people, it was an eerie time. You didn't go up to anybody's house at night. People had loaded shotguns by their door. They had rewards out. There were newspaper articles. I mean, $10,000 reward back in the late 70s was a lot of money, and at the time they thought possibly they were, religious cults, maybe mutilating these cattle. But I think we can rule that out safely. It wasn't cults, because it wasn't just Colorado. This is Kansas, New Mexico, Nebraska, Missouri, Montana. I mean, these were happening all in all these different states at the same time. So,
let's get into the cattle mutilation phenomena here for a couple of minutes here, because this is one that is confusing at best. If you believe it's extraterrestrial and aliens are doing this, what do they just want a good cut of steak, and or some prime rib, or is it the fact that there is something a little bit more earthbound that is causing this? I mean, because some of these cattle that are being mutilated, the cut lines that are being found on them are laser straight. Like, you can angle them, and there's no hacking, there's no edges, there's no slips of the cutting as a human would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the little bit of research I've done, and again, I'm not the expert in this. Like I said, Chuck Zukowski and Chris O'Brien have done a lot of work on this, and I would tell your listeners to maybe look at their research. But from the little bit I've done, I mean, I have found pictures of helicopters that are lifting a lot of cattle. I mean, I know we have the ability to lift cattle in the air and move them to places, but it's not like they're lifting them, doing the mutilations and then dropping them back down. Some cattle were found in really unusual circumstances, like in different positions that aren't natural to them, or a log over them or under them. The story with Sheila with the 4 incisions, and then it's almost like they caught something in the act. To me, that's a pretty phenomenal story, and that doesn't sound like military to me doing that. So again, I don't know why in the heck ET would want cattle and sheep, and I don't know if it's a genetic thing or if they're what sort of testing they're doing. When you get into the whys of the motivations for what's happening, that gets really convoluted. I don't have the answers to that. And that's something pretty frustrating about our job as investigators. You talk and you deal with people, and I love listening and getting the information so we can find these commonalities, but then they want answers like, who are they? What do they want? Where do they come from? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't have all those answers. So that could be a little frustrating. And same with the cattle mutilations. I don't know why ET would do that. And I don't believe that, I believe some of them must be. And my theory is this. First of all, I had to go through the process like so many people. First, you have to ask yourself, do you believe in extraterrestrial life in the universe, right?
Right.
And I can pretty much say yes. Then the next question is, do you think they have come to Earth? And then if you get to a yes there, you're like, well, if they'd come to Earth, would they abduct humans and would they mutilate cattle and other animals and possibly human? Would they do that? And I've come to the conclusion that if they've made it to Earth, then of course they're going to abduct people and probably take samples of animals, because I believe we would do the same thing. If we made it to another planet, I think we would want to scientifically study the life on that planet.
I find it very intriguing as well. So let's go back to this farm. How often were things happening?
Almost daily when the family was there for those 3 years. Whether it was the humming noises or a mutilation or these helicopters going on and off the property. There was the adult male and the oldest son. Now, I've made contact with the youngest son via Facebook. The family that owned the property, the father that lived with us, the boys' dad that worked at United with my mom, he recently passed away. The mother is still alive and the boyfriend has passed away, but the 3 sons are still living. They're all still terrified about what happened out there. They've all moved out of the state. They are not into UFOs. They really don't want anything to do with this. So the question I get asked a lot is, well, were these people just making it up? And I actually wondered that myself for a while, because at the time this ranch was known as Clearview, and there was some questions because some of the boys had longer hair. And when you move into a really small town and you're coming from the city, there's why do these guys have long hairs? Is there drugs? Are they doing drugs or whatever? But the fact of the matter is there's so many witnesses in so many different of the small community towns in Elbert County that it just wasn't isolated to the ranch. This phenomenon was happening to other people, including Bill Waugh and his family, and Sheila and her family, and many, many other ranchers. I mean, just look at all the newspaper articles. So this phenomenon just wasn't linked to that particular ranch and that particular family. Although it's really interesting to note that when you go out to the property, it does have the highest elevation, and there's ponderosa pines all along the back. So there were Sasquatch creatures seen out there, and they were menacing. They were like banging on the house and peeking from the barn and like watching the family all the time. So, and according to the documents here, there were hair samples found, and they did cast some footprints out there. I wish I knew what happened to those because I'm really curious about it.
Oh, you're making us all want to go down there and check things out. You totally are. It reminds me of my friend's ranch up here, although it was only 10 acres, small hobby farm if you want to make it realistic. It's amazing that when you have one, how everything else goes with it. So if you're having paranormal activity, all of a sudden the fairies are there, the shadow people are there, the UFOs are there, the Sasquatch are there. Anything strange that can happen, it all seems to lump in. Did you ever wonder if it has to do with the energy of the place, or if there's something like a portal calling everything in or around the property?
Yeah, that was that's something I really took some time in. And again, I'm not coming up with anything new here. I believe other people have thought of this and researched it as well. But preparing my presentation for Laughlin, I started researching, the Bradshaw Ranch and the Skinwalker Ranch and the Blind Frog Ranch. And with my Mars program for MUFON, what Mars program is, it is a program where I had a team of 15 redactors, and we went through all the Pandora files that Debbie Ziegelmeyer actually organized all these years ago, and they were pre-case management systems, so pre-internet, when everything was on paper for MUFON. And we went and redacted all the personal information, all the names and places of employment and phone numbers and all that, so researchers can go back and see these documents and use them. And while I was redacting these old files, I came across another ranch that predates Skinwalker Ranch and predates the Elbert County Ranch, and it's in Ohiopyle, Pennsylvania. And was and the same thing, paranormal, Sasquatch, UFO sightings, humming noises, all of it. And so what's interesting, I put a pin in Ohiopyle, Pennsylvania, and a pin in Skinwalker Ranch, and they're just, bam, straight line across. But then I started looking at all these different ranches, and there's another ranch called the Meadows, Trey Hudson. And so I started looking at these different areas and looking at the magnetic. So there's a map, the U.S. magnetic geological map that you can go to online. And the lightest shade of pink is where the magnetism is at its highest. So the magnetism really, really pulls tight. I think the lowest is dark, dark blue, where they repel each other. And in all these high strangeness areas, all these ranches ping the charts. They're the lightest shade of pink you can get. So they're very highly magnetically charged. And it's my belief there has to be something to that. There just has to be. I don't know if it's opening gateways or doorways or portals or what.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. And the problem is, even if you think it's portals, there's no way to test for this. It's all based on assumption.
Right.
This is where it becomes a real pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. I think also what's really important is, because, even 2 years ago, if I talked about this, I was really hesitant to talk about what Bill Wall, the sheriff, talks about. So he talks about, and his wife and his son remember this very well, that he was on patrol one night. He sees these lights, okay? And it's by a tree, and he pulls up closer, and it's this box. So I witnessed the box, and the sheriff witnessed the box, and a couple other people on the property, the oldest son, and John witnessed the box out there. And this box is about 17 inches long, about 6 inches wide. It had lights, and it made this like bee noise, made this noise. And the box would disappear. And so Bill Wall said he didn't want to approach the box, so he goes in town, he gets a posse sheriff, they go back to approach the box, and the box is gone and the tree is gone. He said it's like they went into the ground. Now that would kind of speak about a portal or a tunnel, and that sounds absolutely nuts to me, but it's been witnessed by several people. And what blew my mind was when I was talking with Trey Hudson on the Meadows and James Keenan, they have witnessed the box just recently. Here I am thinking, the box is long gone. We haven't seen it in 40 years. And they've just recently seen the box, and they had a box encounter on Skinwalker Ranch. So whatever these boxes are, I have no idea. I do have a theory on what two possibilities of what they could be.
We have 1 minute.
Okay, we'll save that.
Save the possibilities. Were there ever aliens seen on the ground?
Yes, not by me, but by the older gentleman and the oldest son. Yes, they had two different types, and they said they were in conflict with one another.
Oh, nice. Aliens battling it out on your property.
Right, and we were just like, you're in our way. We've allowed you to remain, but you're really just in our way. Leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, kind of thing. That's what's reported in the report.
Wonderful. I couldn't imagine what that would be like to have aliens duking it out in a big, street brawl right in the middle of my cornfield or my hay field. What do? They bring in a crop circle to cut out a ring, so that way there's one alien sitting on the outside with a bell, ding, ding, let's go. I don't know.
I don't know, but what's fascinating is how different they look, and I'll talk about that too when we come back. The two different ones that were spotted out there. I don't know.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Let's get into some aliens next with Katie Griboski. She likes her aliens. Never seen one, as far as she knows. But she likes them aliens. She's chasing them for MUFON in Colorado and all over the United States and North America. She is a great speaker. She's a great author. You can find her book on Amazon. Griboski.com is her website. And when we come back, we're going to get into aliens. What is happening on this Colorado ranch? And, of course, Katie's two-point opinion of what the heck is going on. Katie Griboski joins us for Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio, coming up right after this. All right, we're clear. I'm going to just run my dogs outside. I'm going to refill my glass, and I'll be right back, okay?
Sounds good.
So I'm going to mute you, and I'll be right back. Be right back, people. Come on, Doug Stevenson. Huh? Are you staying? Okay. All right, I am back. Let's bring Katie up here. We have about 1 minute left. Anybody new join us? Jazz, thank you so much for that super chat, man. Really appreciate that, Jazz. And thank you to Media, Fox, Apollo, and Michael for the great super chats. We really do appreciate the support here that you have of SOR. Thank you so much. Excuse me. You having fun yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. All right. So we got about 35 seconds before we're going to come back from break. Make sure I'm not missing anybody who's entered the chat room. Snakes on a UFO, what's happening? Thanks for joining us. I did put on an identical shirt. That's right. Fullerene, how you doing? Welcome to the show. We got 5 seconds here. Let's get ready to rock and roll, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Kicking off hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Thank you to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Lectisternium. I probably butchered that, but the clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Katie Griboski. She is the head of MUFON in Colorado, state director. She likes her aliens, she likes her UFOs, she likes her weird haunted ranches. Her website, katiegriboski.com. Katie, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Now, right before the break, you were going to tell us a story about these aliens that were walking around this Colorado ranch.
Right. So the oldest gentleman and the oldest son apparently had encounters and these telepathic communications with these beings that are out there. I personally never saw them, nor did my sister. But we got to hear, every Sunday night when the boys would come back, we'd hear about the things that were going on at the ranch. And it's also in the briefing document that I acquired years later. And like I said earlier, we have those sketches. I don't know if I held them up, but I kind of described what they look like. They're in the book Letters of Love and Light, where you can see the two comparisons side by side. But according to the briefing document, there were two different types seen out there. One was very mechanical, which interestingly enough, I was just standing in line at the grocery store one day, buying my peas and my my steak. And I'm looking at the magazines, and there was a issue of Popular Science. And they had AI on the cover. And it looked pretty similar to the drawing of the weird tube guys. And I'm like, well, that's sort of interesting. I wonder if that's some sort of an AI type of mechanical. And, of course, the mechanical voices. Are those connected? Could it be like an AI type being? And then the other entity that was seen on the property were more humanoid-like, kind of like the Nordic type of ET being, and they said that they were in conflict with one another. What that conflict is, I do not know. But basically the gist of it was, hey, we're here doing what we need to do. Whether they were there to, I know that on Skinwalker Ranch, I believe, and the Blind Frog Ranch, they're looking at gilsonite. I don't know if that's a man-made. I don't know a lot about gilsonite, but I don't know if there's certain minerals or meteorites on these locations, or if it has to do with the geological areas that maybe they're there. I don't know the whys of things, but that's what was reported out there.
Interesting. Now, you have a couple of theories as to what's going on there. What's your theories?
I had some theories on the boxes, because when I interviewed Sheila, she had mentioned, and I had read this in other reports and when I talked to other ranchers, that as far as the cattle are concerned, the cattle where the mutilations were occurring, the cattle would all kind of huddle together and be really calm. But the cattle in adjoining pastures where the mutilations were not occurring were really freaked out and like acting erratic and kind of they were just freaked out. And so I had wondered if the boxes were some sort of calming device or some sort of mind control device. That's one theory. The other reason I say that is in the report, it talks about a officer from Camp Carson going out and investigating the property. So we know there were people out there from the military investigating the area. And he had mentioned that in the Ponderosa Pines in the back of the ranch house, he felt like something took over his mind and would pull him into the Ponderosa Pines and then would release him, and he would run back, and then it would take over his mind, and then it would release him. And he said that happened 5 times, which implies to me some sort of mind control device. And I thought, that would make sense. Or my other theory is maybe if they were communicating like that disembodied electrical voice we heard, if that box wasn't some sort of a communication device. Those are just some thoughts that I personally have.
Do you think that Colorado being a very militarized state, including the head of NORAD at Cheyenne Mountain, do you think the military has any play in this?
Yeah, I think I do. I do. I have a couple of reasons for that. There's no question we have photographs that the military, they were out there. I have notes and documents stating, that NORAD was involved and they were instructed to handle Bigfoot. And actually, they even told George Yarnell and Bill Waugh to really stop going out on these cattle mutilation calls, to kind of, tuck it under the rug, so to speak. But one of the things that I've been really researching lately and I find interesting in this document here, they talk about 2 A7D interceptors that crashed in pursuit of a UFO. And I'm like, well, certainly if 2 interceptors crashed, there would be articles or some news about it. So I was able to locate some newspaper articles about these 2 interceptors that went down. And then just yesterday, I get this in the mail. So I can see why John Greenwald gets really excited about FOIA requests, because I FOIA'd requested to Kirkland Air Force Base about the 2 A7D interceptors that went down. So I spent yesterday combing through this huge stack of the incident report to see if there's anything unusual. A good portion of it is redacted out, but what I find unusual about it, it matches the time of these high mutilations. B, in this report, it states that it was a pilot and a trainer, and the cause was that the instructor told the pilot to turn on his beakers, his lights, and he turned them off and ran into it. But what is stated in here is one of the pilots misidentified another craft's lights. And this is out in the middle of nowhere, and it doesn't even mention anything more about what that other craft was, and then it's all redacted out. So the 2 interceptors hit each other in the tail. They both crashed, both pilots eject, and they both survived. But another interesting thing is they were loaded and armed with live ammunition, which from what I understand, and people out there can correct me if I'm wrong that are out there in the military, but during training missions at night over civilian homes, I don't think it's normal to have loaded ammunition on these jets. So I just find the whole thing really unusual. And it is reported from the sheriff that they were in pursuit of a UFO. Now, it doesn't say this in these documents, but I was able to get verification that these two interceptors did go down. So I think that's pretty interesting stuff.
I also know from a Canadian standpoint, I don't know if you know this or not, but every UFO call that goes into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that file goes right onto the desk of the staff sergeant, who immediately has to send that report to Ottawa at RCMP headquarters, who immediately sends that report to Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, where from there they send out the two closest CF-18 Hornets to try and intercept the craft.
Interesting.
And which also...
that other report I talked about earlier of the lady with the two. That's really interesting.
Which also means, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting, and I've talked to people in Ottawa about this, who are part of the government, that every report that they take down, so when the RCMP asks for a report of what you saw, they're asking for your name, your birth date, your phone number, your address, any other witnesses. All of that information goes to Colorado as well, which means that any Canadian who has reported a UFO to the RCMP and they have taken a full statement now has all of their information sitting in Cheyenne Mountain.
Interesting. I just hiked around Cheyenne Mountain a couple weeks ago on my way back from Canyon City when I did that thing. They have a little park there, and you can hike kind of at the base of it. It's the Cheyenne Mountain State Park. And of course, you can't get any closer than that. But, I do believe Christopher O'Brien talks about a cattle mutilation where the cattle that was mutilated was actually on the doorstep of NORAD. So there was a whole event with a mutilation with that. I believe that I think a couple things were happening out on that ranch. I believe, and that's something I've asked my witnesses time and time again that I've interviewed that went through things, that had experiences at the time. I'm like, do you believe the military or NORAD or our government, whoever, the powers that be, were out there creating and trying to scare the bejeebas out of people, or was something really unusual from some extraterrestrials out there creating this? And I think it's a combination of both. I think both things were happening. And interestingly enough, and I'm going to bring up something really controversial here, but, out in Laughlin, they had Richard Doty out there. And Richard Doty, for many who know, he is a proclaimed disinformation officer. I mean, he has told us that's what he did for the military, but he was there speaking. And so he was walking out the door. I was walking in the door, and I kind of cornered him, and I asked him a few questions. I didn't know if he had a Colorado connection at the time, but I kind of just wanted his opinion on, hey, was NORAD, was the military involved? And he said exactly that. Number one, he kind of told me, he's like, if you want to find information, he said, we were just talking about your presentation. I don't know who we was, but he said, we were just talking about your presentation. And I said, well, where can I get information about these two A7D interceptors? And he said, well, you need to FOIA the mishaps office in Kirtland. So he did do that, and that's who I got the response from and these papers from. Hopefully they're legit. And then secondly, he said he believes that there were psychological DARPA experiments going on at the time, as well as unidentified flying objects and unknown things happening at the time. So, and from my evidence in the research I've done, that would line up with what I have found as well.
You believe, though, it's all tied together. The cattle mutilations, the alien sightings. Do you believe the paranormal happenings or the cryptid happenings are tied in as well?
I do for these high strangeness ranches, and even outside of that, I've talked to so many abductees and people who have ET contact or close encounter sightings that all of a sudden after that happens, and Dr. Leo Sprinkle's work talks about this as well, where all these other paranormal pieces start entering their lives that coincide with this contact, right? Dr. Leo Sprinkle called them the packs or stages that ET experiencers go through. And I have found that true with so many people that I have talked to, whether it's lucid dreams starting up, intuitive psychic abilities getting enhanced, hearing strange knocks or noises in the house or shadow figures, or seeing these balls of light. Some are blue, some are orange. I hear orange orbs a lot. So there's just these check boxes that as an investigator and a researcher, you start hearing it over and over and over. You kind of have this list in your mind like, oh yeah, heard that before and heard that. And a lot of them are tied together. Now, when it comes to the Sasquatch beings, that's really interesting too. I think his name is Stan Gordon, wrote a good book. I have it here in my library somewhere on the Sasquatch and the UFO encounters. Oh yeah, here it is. It's Silent Invasion, the UFO Bigfoot Casebook. And this is interesting too, because just like the ranches, it seems from his research that some of the Bigfoot encounters also have a UFO connection and some don't. So I don't know if it's an interdimensional thing. You know, sometimes you hear the Bigfoot accounts where you'll see just a flash of light and then boom, they're gone. You also hear the accounts of Sasquatch encounters where they have these telepathic thought. So I don't know if they're ET beings themselves or connected to the ETs or what, but the Sasquatch that were out on the Elbert County property definitely were connected to the craft, because they're certainly not spotted out there all the time or anymore. It was like they were there only because the craft were there.
Okay, that leads to an interesting question, because a lot of Sasquatch researchers do not believe there is a tie to UFOs and or extraterrestrial content. But in a case like this, where it's both happening on the same property, you would think that there is a correlation between the two.
Absolutely. And my sister's very analytical. She's in radio and stuff, and she had a separate experience, separate from my own. She actually went to the high school prom with the oldest son, and they went to the ranch property at night after prom, and they experienced a downcraft. And she was like the Sasquatch Bigfoot creature they saw was almost like a bodyguard or workers, like they were directly connected. So maybe, only a handful of them are, but I think some definitely are. There's too many reports that state that, if you go through history.
Yeah, and I agree, and I'm surprised that more aren't looking into the tie between the two, because I'm a firm believer there is an invisible thread, Katie, that really connects the paranormal to the cryptid world, to the UFO world, to the extraterrestrial world. I really think that is the next place that we need to start investigating as investigators. I think we've tried to segregate every topic way too much to the point where we don't want to believe there is connection between it all. But when you see a case like this, where on one property you have everything happening, there is no other solution than this is all tied together. And I wish more researchers would take the time to understand that.
Absolutely. And not only just the phenomena, our five senses, right? There's also the whole other side of it that you can't see, touch, taste, feel, which is this whole intuitive psychological side of it too, which to me is just as important. The lucid dreaming and the enhanced abilities with so many contactees all have a big role in the whole phenomenon as well. I, like you, believe that there are so many cases and so much evidence that tie these phenomena together, and that's in where the answer is going to lie somehow, some way.
Katie Griboski is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, and we have just over 4 minutes before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Kate, with this ranch, and we're going to change topics at the bottom of the hour, but with this ranch, do you want or do the current owners allow any type of investigation there?
No, they don't. I mean, it's a gated community right now. I left them a note pre-COVID, and she responded. Then COVID hit, and I felt very strongly like this was something I didn't want to tell her over the telephone or text about. I wanted to meet her in person. After the restrictions kind of lifted and restaurants started to open, I left her a message and she didn't get back with me. So I'm still sort of knocking at her door. I think it's a delicate subject. We don't get very many reports out in Elbert County anymore as far as MUFON is concerned. But what's interesting about that is I talk with Sheila, who knows a lot of the ranchers, and she actually just had a photograph of a recent mutilation. And a lot of these ranchers don't report anymore, especially if it's a mutilation, because A, they don't want the stigma. B, they know nothing's going to happen. They don't get reimbursed. I think a lot of them write it off as a loss on their taxes. I do believe that for a while, though, that the government was secretly writing checks for some of these mutilated cattle, which then would indicate that, yes, they had a hand in some of these. That's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true. I need to ask Chris about that one. So a lot of these things don't get reported, that small town stigma mentality. And that's why I say Elbert County and I don't give the exact town in Elbert County. Elbert County has 5 really small towns, and they're all very small communities. And the fact of the matter is there were mutilations and activity happening in all the little towns within the county. So, but
So this is a known secret that people don't talk about.
Yeah.
Now, as time is winding down here, we got about 2 minutes. Does temperature or weather have anything to do with these mutilations or the activity that is there?
I don't believe so. But I don't rule out a geographical connection. And then, of course, there's the whole Native American folklore. I mean, especially with Skinwalker Ranch with the Ute tribes. And the Ute did hunt in that area. I mean, they kind of hunt and traveled over into Colorado from Utah. We had Cheyenne and Arapaho out there. And there are cliff dwellings and petroglyphs out there on some of the rock faces. So I don't know if there's that native tie. There's also some spooky folklore that happened back in the wooded area in the Ponderosa Pines. There were bank robbers, 3 of them actually, that were in a wagon that were cuffed to the ankles and to the hands, and they were snagged and actually hung out in those Ponderosa Pines. So that's kind of creepy and spooky. I don't know if that makes it more haunted out there or what, but that Native American connection I wonder about as well. So that's kind of fascinating, the history of the land itself.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty interesting regarding that, because I was wondering if the weather is like what it's like up here where I am. You get 4 seasons. You don't get, a long summer and then a cool down and then a long summer again.
That's true.
So I was wondering, like, if it's, say, minus 20 Fahrenheit, are you getting action with UFOs and cattle mutilations at that temperature?
Yeah, actually, when they bought the ranch in November, it kind of starts in the winter months. And they talk about how you couldn't even drive down this long driveway because it was so snowy out there. And they were getting the humming noises and the mutilations even in the snow. And the footprints they got were in the snow. So, yes, it was happening in all the seasons. In Colorado, we definitely get the winter and the fall and spring and summer. And especially in the late 70s, our weather's kind of changing in the last 10 years or so, where it seems like our winters are getting shorter and more mild and our summers are getting hotter. It's been dang hot here this summer.
Well, we're getting dang hot summers. We're getting dang cold winters. Yeah. And a lot of snow here in British Columbia. But nonetheless, when we come back with Katie Griboski, what's it like to chase aliens? What's it like to chase down UFOs? What kind of running shoe do you wear for that? We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, we're clear. Good times.
Let's see. I wear a high heel shoe. No,
That would not surprise me. A nice stiletto will always do that. What a way to run through a cattle field in a nice stiletto. Closed toe so the poop doesn't get in there.
That's funny.
IFG or FVGBE 342. What's happening?
I have a few minutes, right, Dave?
Yeah, we got about 4.5 minutes.
I'm going to go to the restroom really fast.
You go, girl. You go. Hi, Dirty Filth. What are you drawing now, Filth? Oh, stiletto heels running through. That's what you're doing. Make sure they're closed toe, buddy. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Really, Minister Elaine? What is that like? It's got to be grotesque. The hell are you insulting my shirt here? Dave has lions outside his house all the way from Africa for wearing that shirt, tricking those poor cats into him being Juicy Zebra. That's terrible. Chris Mo! Troy SR71, how are you? We're at 201 people. That is phenomenal. Awesome. Thank you all for listening tonight. Yeah, Katie's great, isn't she? Don't tell her I said that. She's coming back.
I didn't hear you.
Okay, good. It's kind of cool. We're over 200 people live.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's loving on you. They're already asking, when's Katie coming back? When's Katie coming back? When's Katie coming back? I don't know. I don't know. She might not even like us. We might be. She might not understand our Canadian accent. Hi, gorgeous Beverly Holmes. How are you? Thank you, Alan Hold. What's with the... Why are you knocking the shirt? My shirt is fantastic. It's comfy. Comfy.
You must be a musician.
Learning to be.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you, Fapster, for that great super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Really do. I always wanted to learn how to play guitar, and I was never allowed to as a kid. And then as an adult, I got this one for my 39th birthday. Nice. And just never had time to take lessons. And so now I'm in lessons. My son is in lessons because I have a little 8-year-old metalhead.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hi, Aiden. How are you? Yeah. Let's see. What's he into right now? He just found Green Day and Nirvana.
Nice.
Yeah, he sits on YouTube and just plays music.
That's awesome.
Irish Lincoln, how you doing?
I just bought a T-shirt with the Nirvana logo from Disneyland, and it has the aliens from the Cantina, band. His shirt.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, big thank you to FAP, Snakes, Jazz, Media Fox, Apollo, and Michael for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And if you're new, give us a thumbs up. If you've just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. We are here 7 days a week for you. And so check us on out. Here we go, everyone. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us on the Mighty SOR. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with State Director for MUFON in Colorado, Katie Griboski. Fantastic hair, excellent speaker, and we're going to bring her back on. Her website is katiegriboski.com if you want to check it on out, which we suggest you do. Katie, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, let's get to the important stuff right off the bat. What kind of shampoo and conditioner are you using?
Oh my gosh, I use the big purple stuff. What is it called? I don't know the name of it. It's expensive though. My hair salon.
Yes.
I don't know the name of it.
I don't know the name of mine. It just smells good.
Yeah.
Smells good. You know, and that's all that matters. How does it smell? Good. Good enough. Yes. Stay away from the Head and Shoulders and the Pantene. Definitely. Definitely. And a good conditioner also works. Enough hair talk already. What's it like to chase down UFOs and aliens?
Well, it's jumping into the rabbit hole and never getting out. I quit my full-time job and I do this full-time now because it just consumes so much of my time. I guess I'm pretty dogged in that way, and I want answers. So, and I do love going to archives. So I have a whole other case we haven't even touched on that I've been working on for over 2 years. And once you get a really good case that really grabs your interest, it's hard to get out of that. And I just love hearing other people's experiences and making those connections.
Well, tell us the story of this case you've been working on for 2 years.
Well, it's something I haven't made public quite yet because I've been collecting documents and coming up with my hypothesis because it's a very well-known case. It has to do with a Roswell body and where it was taken. So Brigadier General Arthur Exon was rumored that one of the Roswell ET bodies was taken to and housed at a mortuary outfit here in Denver. So a few years ago, a report came in from a very nice couple in California whose father was best friends with the mortician in a mortuary in Denver. And this gentleman, whom I went out to New Mexico and interviewed twice now, he has since passed away, so I'm very lucky that we got his testimony on camera and documented. But he pulled what he called his caper one evening because this vault was sitting down in the mortuary in Denver in a room where they stored the folding chairs. And it was a vault just sitting in the corner, and he did not think there was a body in there. He thought maybe there were papers or who knows what, but, the owner of the mortuary, which I'm not going to give the name to yet, but said, don't touch this. There's a hold on it by a judge. And so this judge had put a hold on this body for decades, which is really interesting. And I've learned since that the judge was a federal judge and he was appointed by Nixon. So I've been researching the judge, who has also passed away, but an interesting twist of fate. My mother was living in an assisted living home at the time, and she wanted me to give a presentation to the residents there. So I did a little presentation, UFOs 101. And I was telling the nice folks after the presentation about the mortuary and the Roswell body and the judge that had a hold on the body. And one of the residents goes, "Oh, blank name. I'm not ready to give the name yet. His widow's on the 5th floor. You want me to go get her?" So I've been able to interview the judge's wife twice. I've been to the Eisenhower archives because the judge and his wife live 2 doors down from Mamie Eisenhower, who has a Denver connection. So there's an Eisenhower connection, mortuary connection, and then the judge was also a 33-degree Mason. And the lodge is just right down the street from the mortuary, the Mason Lodge, and really close to Fitzsimmons and Lowry Air Force Base. So there's this whole connection. I've been to the Eisenhower archives several times, and I've been gathering documents because when I bring this story out to the UFO community, I really need to have my ducks in a row. I have a lot of them in a row. But when I come out with all the details and all the facts and all the names, I really need to have all that together. And I've been working on this for a couple years. It's really intriguing. I think I even know where they've moved the little body to, but I need ways to prove that. So I'm in the process of doing soil samples, and I'm hoping to find somebody to help me do some research on this as far as ground penetrating radar and some things like that. So it's a super exciting case with really credible people. My first question, though, to the mortician was, why didn't, when you opened it and looked at the body, so he pulled his caper in the middle of the night, he opened the vault. Inside the vault was a child-sized casket. So he, unzips the thing. It's soaked in 7 layers of formaldehyde. And he said all the visceral was completely removed and the genitals were completely cut out. The ET had almond-shaped eyes, a heavy brow, orifices for ears. He couldn't see the neck because the way the body was laying. The skin was really grayish blue, leathery. But he did not think ET at the time, because my first question was, well, why didn't you take pictures? Why didn't you, if you thought it was an ET Roswell body, why didn't you take pictures? But he didn't connect it to that at the time. At the time, he was like mortified that this was a child's casket, and he felt that he violated this little being, and he thought maybe perhaps it was a severely hydrocephalic child or a very malformed child at the time. It wasn't until years later that him and his wife were hang gliding. They were hang gliders in Roswell, New Mexico, that they just happened to stop by the museum, and he heard the rumor from Brigadier General Arthur Exon that one of the bodies was stored in a mortuary outfit in Denver, and all the bells went off. Ding, 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 ding. Oh my God, that's what I saw. So it's a really super interesting case and very credible.
When you break it, we'll have airtime for you.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Sure. You can break it.
I kind of broke it already, a little.
Okay, so if I get this right, just to summarize, because I never get to use the word summarize a lot on this show. Basically, one of the bodies from Roswell ended up in Denver.
Yeah, in a mortuary in Denver, which would make sense to me because at the time, Fitzsimmons was a pretty big deal, and I believe they autopsied one of the bodies at Fitzsimmons. My logical thinking is, why put all your eggs in one basket? Why wouldn't you take one and autopsy it at Fitzsimmons? Why it ended up in the basement of a mortuary, I do not know. I even went down to the probate offices and tried to get any documents, because if the body was held by a judge, they should have documents. The problem is you need a name or you need a file number. And of course, I don't have a name of the little ET, and I certainly don't have a file number.
The ties to Eisenhower are very intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of this UFO history seems to tie around Roswell and his history as a general coming out of World War II, getting into politics, and then the alleged scenario where on the West Coast he went to meet with extraterrestrials at what is now Edwards Air Force Base. And whether or not that actually happened, or if he went to L.A. for an emergency tooth extraction. What do you think happened there?
Well, since this Roswell body case for me, I think he actually did go meet with these ETs. I think that he's protecting this little one that is in Denver. That's what I think. Yeah, I think there's truth in that story.
All right, let's get to a question from Jim. And he is asking, I'm surprised we haven't had more audience questions for you tonight, the way they are loving on you. Jim is asking, do you think these aliens would want their dead back?
Well, yeah, we would want ours back. I do. Don't you?
I don't know. I mean, let's see. I mean, there's so many things that could go on here. But, if there's a deal made, okay, humans for technology that Eisenhower did make, it would make sense that the ETs didn't ask for this body back.
Right. It's part of the, and like I said, I think I know where this little body is. And I think this body, that's part of the reason it was held. I think it's been treated with respect. This body, I believe, wasn't cut up in a lot of pieces. I think this body was laid to rest with respect. So maybe that was part of the deal.
Do you think that the body has been buried since then? And maybe it's either been cremated or in a mortuary somewhere or buried in an unknown grave at some cemetery?
Yes, I think it's the very last thing you said. I think it's been put to rest in an unmarked grave in a cemetery.
Any clues to where that cemetery may be or grave marker?
I do, but I can't really say right now. What's interesting about it, though, is everywhere around where I believe this body to be, it's very green and lush, except for where that body is. And now it's been 2 years, and every spring and summer, it's the same thing. Dead grass, dead, where I think it is. And I will disclose it eventually. I'm just doing more testing and still, like I said, getting my ducks in a row. But yes, I believe this body was treated with respect, and I believe that maybe is part of the deal there. Yeah.
Do you think that going on in the future, if you're able to prove what you can prove on this, that it might be cause to have that body exhumed?
It'll never be able to happen because where it is.
Is it in a military cemetery?
I can't tell you.
That would tell. You know what? I'm just going to assume that because that just makes sense.
Yeah.
That just makes sense.
Where it is, I believe it makes sense where it's placed, and I don't think it ever could be touched where it's placed. And it would make logical sense to me. All of it sort of makes sense. It's like, where do you hide a book? You hide a book in a library. Where do you hide a body? You hide a body in a mortuary. It sort of all makes sense. Again, COVID shut down the archives. I have more leads and more boxes I need to go pull. And just recently contacted the other University of Nebraska, and I can go. They open it up for more research in September. Hopefully they do if things don't reverse again. So I'm hoping to go back and finish up the research on this topic because it is fascinating, and I believe it makes a lot of sense to me, and the people involved make a lot of sense to me.
Any way of sneaking into that ground and maybe stealing some of the soil from there?
I did.
Ooh, you little thief, you.
Yeah. And I had my kids film it. It's not pretty bad. So I had my daughter and my son out there with me, and I'm like, okay, you got to get this on film. But the first time I did it, I didn't do it correctly. I had the gloves and I just did topsoil. But then after I researched more, I realized I needed to get a core tool. So I'm going back and doing it with the correct tool. So I have to go back and sneak in there and do it again. But with all the right equipment this time.
Got to do it at night. Be camouflaged.
Well, I don't think I can get in at night. You just have to sort of be nonchalant in the day. Hope nobody sees you there.
Right.
I can use my kids as like, oh, it's a science experiment for my kids' science project.
Okay. Hopefully nobody is watching this show.
No.
All right. Another question from our audience. YJ is asking, can you speak more about the conflict between the alien species here?
Well, I didn't witness it, and I can only go what's reported, and what my beliefs and what makes sense to me is that, I believe that there's maybe a AI, more mechanical type of species, and this more angelic kind of species, probably, maybe. I mean, I'm speculating here, but maybe, certain races out there want to help humanity and protect us, and others could care less and want to, reap our planet. I don't know what it is, but, when you get into the whys, it's hard to say. But I just know that there were two different beings. And what's interesting, too, two different phenomenon. So the electrical beings in the report, the ones with the tubes, anytime those beings were around is when that humming noise and the box and the paralysis would come. Because there's several reports of the mom and the older son and even myself experienced where you'd go paralyzed or fall unconscious to the floor or unable to move. And that seemed to only happen with the mechanical beings. The other beings, that didn't happen, or it wasn't reported anyway. So that's kind of interesting.
All right, let's get to another one. Space Cow is asking, do you think the Nephilim are here right now?
I'm not sure. I know there's some folks that believe that they're walking amongst us. That's a possibility, I suppose. I'm not sure. I believe that, just like in the paranormal ghost world, we could have ETs all around us and we just can't see them. Just like with a ghost.
Another question from Jim. The alien DNA of the body may be seeping into the soil? That's what you're hoping?
Interesting. I don't know. I think it would be in a vault. So I don't know if it could seep out of the vault because it's like concrete. I actually have the mortician talking about how it's a vault within a vault within a vault. So it's like in 3 layers. Plus, it would be in a zip bag with formaldehyde. So I don't know, what would be causing the grass to be dead there exactly. I just wanted to compare the soil to see if there were any differences at all between a healthy part of where the body is and, the dead part, and see what the differences are there. Because I'm not sure what's causing the grass to die there.
Tony is asking, have you collaborated with Linda Moulton Howe, and did you come up with any new information?
I haven't collaborated with Linda. I met her only once, and I'm not sure if she'll be at this year's symposium in Las Vegas, but I hope to talk to her more.
I was supposed to be good at that. Apparently I was on the short list to speak there.
Oh.
Maybe next year.
Well, and you need to get out of Canada first.
I know. Drop my name there next year. I want to be there.
I will. I definitely will.
Yes. You and Tom Whitmore, my 2 MUFON buddies, go drop the gloves and say, we got to get Dave down here. Got to get Dave down here.
Tom's awesome.
I love Tom Whitmore.
Mm-hmm.
That man is like an encyclopedia.
Yes, there are several of those within MUFON. It blows my mind, and I am not one of those people that just can pull out dates and names and it just blows my mind. It's wow.
Tom and I talk every week.
That's awesome.
Every week we have a phone call, and there's not enough good words out there to say what I think about Tom Whitmore.
Yes.
All right, let's get to Beverly's question. The lovely and talented Beverly is asking, Katie, what are your thoughts on consciousness-initiated contact like CE5?
That is a tricky question when you're a MUFON state director. So I believe that there's definitely a consciousness connection to ET. I believe that you can certainly meditate and communicate in your mind Whether you can draw them in on command is something else altogether. I don't think it's as easy as, on the other hand, I have done that on several occasions, and I will see a flash, like somebody's taking a picture in the sky, like just a flash, like boom. And I'm like, and my logical side will kick in and say, oh, that's just a tumbling satellite or an iridium flare or something like that. So I'm very equal-brained. I have that logical side that I'll just dismiss it. So yes, I believe that some people can do that, and I absolutely 100% believe that there's a consciousness connection to ET contact. Is that a good answer? I mean, that's the best way I can answer that.
It works for me.
It works for me.
Yeah.
There's that darn echo again. Don't know what causes that every now and then. I think I get too close to my microphone, and that's what happens, because sometimes I get excited to get around the microphone. It's my fault.
You have to be really careful. I want to say one other thing about that. You have to be really careful about calling them in and doing... Because where I have a problem is when people start making money off of other people to do things like that. So I would just be really careful with that. You don't need... You can just do it yourself for free, in other words.
Yes. I would agree with you. You don't need to be spending $2,500 to go watch Dr. Wu and his clan go find aliens, when you can do it in your own backyard if you follow those steps. And to be honest with you, if you want to go down that road, as we only got about 2.5 minutes here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour, it really is all about clear consciousness.
Yeah.
Having a clear conscious, clear mind, body, soul, staring up at the sky, focusing your energy and the goodness of your heart into that area. It takes a little bit. It may not happen the first time, may not happen the second or third, but if you keep doing that, eventually the contact will be made.
That's true. And I get that question a lot from people who have never seen anything, and they're like, why does this person see something and this person doesn't? That's a real common question I get. Is there something different? I have some theories about that. I don't know, what causes some people to be able to see and what does it, but pure intent, exactly. I think, you have to ask for it. You need to intend it to happen. You have to have a pure, clear heart and mind, just like you said. Stay really grounded, keep fear away. So there's a lot of different reasons. Some people, their brains are just wired, so they're able to maybe peek into that other realm a little easier than others.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And it's something that eventually, as we grow more toward the consciousness level, I think we're going to see that. Yeah.
And everybody can learn to do it. So, when I talk to folks that have trouble seeing or experience anything, I just will talk to them and say, okay, well, number one, first step, you need to intend it and ask for it. And then we go through a whole list. And it does take practice like anything else to kind of tap into that side of your spirituality or your being. And that's true for UFO and paranormal. I think all of it is connected.
I would love to see more people do it. I used to be able to do it, and I can't now.
Why is that?
I don't spend enough time outside. Like, it takes time. Like, you just can't spend 5 minutes outside, stare up at the stars, and say, okay, I'm good here, and show me, come on, aliens, show me where you are. Doesn't work that way.
Right. It's true.
You definitely need to take the time and make sure that you set the parameters around yourself.
It's true. And protect yourself always. Like, you don't want to... You got to be careful what you invite in.
Very true. Very true. Put the intention out there on what aliens you want to be visiting. Because you don't want the bad guys. Last thing you want is to get Whitleyed without any lube.
That's good.
Katie Griboski will be with us another half an hour. Then we're getting to the Magic 8 Ball on Spaced Out Radio next. All right, I'm just going to run my dogs outside one final time. I'll be right back, okay? Be right back, people. All right, I am back. So I'm going to get you, when we get to the break at the bottom of the hour, just stick with me right through the break, and then I'll say a proper goodnight to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that works for me.
Hey, I had to go. It's Purology. I had to go look. I'll never forget that again.
Purology.
Purology.
Beautiful. Purology.
It's the best.
That's what we're going with tonight. Purology. All right.
Open up a whole can of worms with calling the UFOs in. That's a controversial subject.
It is, but you know
A
what?
delicate subject. It's hard to.
But you said something really cool there, and that was if you put the intention out of whom or what you want to connect with, the chances of having something really cool happen are very high.
And you know how I noticed that in Ghost Hunters? I was always curious that Grant and Jason would always have things happen to them, and then Amy, Bruni, and Chris didn't, and they were kind of more skeptics, right? And Jason and Grant were very open and almost were expecting things to happen all the time. And these are people I've met in person, and you know, I believe them. I know that they have to do some things for the show from time to time, but I really believe it was because of their intention. Like they were expecting things to happen, and so things did happen.
Well, I think there was some behind the scenes that Jason won't admit that he's actually quite tuned in.
Yeah, I think so.
He just won't admit that for the sake because they're scientific, which they are not. Thank you, Ozzy, Steve, Fapster, Snakes, Jazz, and Media Fox, Apollo, and Michael for the super chats. Really appreciate the love and support of this show. Here we go with hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. This one scares me. Lectisterinium. I butchered that. Lectisternium. There we go. Yeah, use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, from Colorado, MUFON State Director Katie Griboski is our guest tonight. And I'll tell you, this lady is on the hunt for anything extraterrestrial, supernatural. Her website, katiegriboski.com, which I highly suggest you check on out. Katie, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Audience question here from Tony. In what way exactly would one protect themselves whilst making, we don't use the word whilst around here enough, whilst making a CE5 type connection?
Definitely start by putting both feet on the ground, grounding yourself, picturing that white light of protection around you, and making sure your intentions are for the good, pure of heart, and literally just say, don't let anything bad into my circle. So, and that's true for any type of work you do in this realm, so to speak. You really have to be careful with what you intend and what you want to let yourself experience.
Gnome Squatch wants to know, does CE5 lead to abductions or probing? Everybody likes a good anal probing, let's be honest.
I suppose that it could. I think if you're opening the door and inviting them in, who knows? Again, that's why you need to be careful and protect yourself. So I suppose that it could lead to that, yes. Abductions, that's a very fragile thing, and MUFON has the experiencer team with Kathleen Martin. And I talk to a lot of experiencers, and it's not always some abductees. I would say the majority of abductees say it's a positive experiences. I would say maybe 40-45%, not so much. It's really interesting too. I mean, alien contact and abductions also can change from time as when you're younger and you're a child, or it can turn from a very frightening experience and change into a better one where maybe they feel protected or guided or put on some sort of mission or something or a purpose in their life. So it's interesting talking to different experiencers about whether it's, positive or a negative experiences.
You know what, though? I will say this from personal experience. I think when you open the door, there is that chance. As much as you protect yourself, I think you end up being like a Kmart blue light special with the beacon light over top of you. And every other species out there, whether they are positive or negative, now knows that you are a contactee or trying to emit or create contact. And therefore, as much as you put out the good, you are expected to get some bad or some not so nice as well. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be having, arms ripped off or anything like that, or all of a sudden become part of the hybridization program. But, for people who've never experienced this, and we get a lot of people on here who will say, look, I don't care if it's good or bad. I just want something to happen. Make me believe. Give me something that makes me believe. And we have to be prepared for that. So you can prepare for all of the good contact that you want, and you got to put the energy out there for that. However, you really do need to realize that for all that good energy, there is something that is watching, waiting to pick up your signal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, there's always positive and negative in everything. I just saw a question that came through here, too, about, why do the ETs not want us to talk about them, or why were we warned not to talk about them? I'm not so sure, and this is something that I'm trying to answer. I don't know if it was the ETs that were warning us not to talk, or if it was the military, NORAD, and the government that was warning us not to talk about what was going on. If there was some sort of psychological experiment going out there at the time, I mean, number one, this is why a lot of the truth will never be disclosed. Can you imagine the lawsuits if we found out that they were running these psychological experiments on innocent people, at the time? So I just saw that come in and wanted to address that.
Yeah, not a problem. With ET contact, with your role in MUFON, how do you decide what is true contact and whether it's something that will be contact, or let me rephrase, I apologize. How do you know it's real contact and not just somebody who is having psychological problems?
Good question. And that's something I'm very, very sensitive to. I had a half-brother who had some mental issues, my oldest half-brother. He was super intelligent and super artistic and wrote some really profound poetry that almost sounded ET connected in a way. So I'm very sensitive to mental illness in that. And for me personally, I think it's really important to just hear people out, listen to what they have to say, take the information down and be unbiased and unjudgmental. Take down the facts, take down their experiences, be a sounding board for those people. And I'll tell you, my biggest inspiration for that is Dr. Leo Sprinkle and all his pioneering work he did with experiencers. And that's exactly what Dr. Leo was for so many people, was a sounding board. He was a man that is he's 90. I think somebody earlier asked how he's doing. He is now permanently in assisted living with his wife, Marilyn. He just had his 90th birthday, and he has had a few falls. So, he's getting a little frail up there, but he's otherwise doing pretty well. And good old, Leo is known to go yeehaw in his own little way. But he was so generous with his time. Like he would sit down on a couch with you and talk with you for 2 hours and listen to your experiences. And he did it to really research and look at the data and look at the percentages and the commonalities. And I think that's really, really important. And I think, whether somebody has a mental illness and is completely out there, I mean, you get a good sense of that within the first 5 or 10 minutes, but you still need to be open and to listen to what they say. And then just make note of that possibly could be an underlying condition or cause.
Do you believe then for the majority of people who create this type of scenario for themselves or experiencing extraterrestrial contact, do you believe that this is something that goes through a life cycle, because we see a lot of patterns, going for generations? Or do you think that this is something that is hitting most people as they start to develop their own spirituality and looking for their own answers?
I think it's the first thing you said. I think, well, for most, I think it can happen both ways, but I think it's more common to I think I have seen time and time and again, and so have other researchers, that these tend to run in family lines, and they seem to follow generational tracks. And it seems like there's like marks where, like, you have initial contact at maybe 3 years old, 5 years old. Your teen years are really heightened from like 12 to 20. And then it kind of goes dormant for a while. And I don't know if that's because we get busy with our lives and family. And then there's something that will usually trigger another contact or awakening or tap into your consciousness, later on in your years, let's say your late 30s or mid 40s, in that range. So it kind of follows this pattern that I've seen anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing that I'm looking for too, is that connection. Because, like, I know in my family, nobody in my family has had experiences
that they know of.
Right? And I don't think they're the type of people who would actually admit it.
Well, right.
So, with MUFON, you being a part of these specialized investigative teams, what's different between those teams and a regular investigation?
Well, with MUFON, there is the field investigator, and then they have the STAR team, which is Strike Team Response, and then they have the SAT team. Now, the SAT team has been dissolved, and the intention for that, it kind of caused a lot of, I wouldn't say turmoil, but people were like, well, why do you have this specialized SAT team? And the intention was good. The intention was to have people that had different specialties, PhD, a scientist, a photo expert, a lab expert, a researcher, which was kind of my role. And if they had a case that was sort of more sensitive or they needed extra work, everybody would collaborate together, which is really how every case should be anyway. We should all collaborate always together. So that team's been dissolved because we didn't want to be, anybody thinking, oh, they're taking the special good cases and we can't have access to those. And in the state of Colorado, even our STAR team members, we have quite a few STAR team members, and that just means you've worked more cases, you have more experience. But in MUFON, we have Category 1s, Category 2, and Category 3. Category 3, of course, are your kind of top cases, or more close encounter, very abduction cases and whatnot that need attention right away. But we will give field investigators Cat 3 cases or work with them. So in Colorado and within MUFON, we all try to collaborate and work cases together. So it's not like just certain people are taking the special cases and you don't get any of those. It's not like that at all. It's just that you have a little bit more experience so you can work with and train the new FIs coming in. So that's how we work it here.
Over the last year, and this will be a little bit sensitive, but over the last year, MUFON has taken an absolute beating with everything that has gone on with Jan Harzan and that horrific case that's still before the courts, and allegedly, because we have to use the word allegedly, trying to lure teenage children who ended up being a police officer. Thank goodness if that's the truth. All right. So my question to you is, do you think MUFON has done enough to bounce back from that stigma of people distrusting them or thinking that now that there is pedophiles roaming around MUFON?
Right. MUFON has got a pretty bad reputation it seems like every few years something else happens that kind of knocks MUFON back down into the dirt again. Whether it's, the racist remarks, and the scandal with Jan Harzan. And it's been tough to kind of hold up MUFON. And I'm always just somebody who goes by my own experiences, especially being a female in the field. There's been issues with, rumors that, women can't go very far there. But from my own experience, I've never experienced that. The Colorado MUFON family is very close. It is like a second family to me. And I haven't experienced anything bad. I think what happened with Jan is awful. I don't think a whole organization needs to be, thrown away because of somebody's really horrible judgment. I think there's a lot of great people and field investigators within the organization still. Your question on whether they can do more to kind of battle all this, I think they could probably do a little bit more, but I think we're doing the best we can to kind of slowly work our way back in there and taking steps to kind of mend things the best way we can.
As a state director regarding this entire situation, has the Board of Governors reached out to the state directors to keep you in touch and abreast with what's going on?
Not so much, no. Not when it comes to Jan. It's sort of, let's forget about that and move on. And that sort of...
That's always been their mantra, though.
Yeah, it kind of has been.
And I've talked to Tom Whitmore about this, and, I think that MUFON over the last couple of years, never mind the whole Jan Harzan thing, I think they've dropped the ball.
A little bit, yes.
You're supposed to be the big dog on campus, and you're not in the media when the media is striking out to everybody about UFOs. You're still not in the media post Jan Harzan. You're sitting there like a lame duck, and you're supposed to be the big dog on campus, and you're playing catch up. Mm-hmm. And for me, I find that very frustrating because I like MUFON.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it frustrating as well. And I've done a couple local things here. But again, I think there's work to be done there, and it is a little bit frustrating, and I wish we can get, more out front and centered. And, so, I'm hanging in there, and hoping we'll turn around and we'll get back up on the horse again, I hope.
I think as I've said publicly, I think it needs a major change up top. Not all the board of directors got to go, but it needs a good house cleaning. And I think that starts with the members who are paying money for it to start raising a little bit of hell to make that happen, because MUFON has too much on the go, that they've dropped the ball too much, and they need some fresh, innovative ideas to get back on top. There's no reason why the U.S. government should have not be talking to MUFON about their files. Okay, MUFON shouldn't be selling files.
Right.
They shouldn't be doing a lot of the stuff that they're doing. I mean, you think about it. This is a supreme point that I would love to make about MUFON. Here is a prime example of them dropping the ball. When the DNI report came out, MUFON should have had an immediate... They've got a YouTube channel. They should have had an immediate YouTube conference breaking down that report, or submitting a press release to every major news outlet saying, here we are, ready to talk, let's discuss this, about how this either is A, good, or B, not so good for the field of UFOs. And nobody is doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I did our local news channel here in Colorado, but I had to make it clear that this is my personal opinion and not the position of MUFON, and because I cannot speak for MUFON, so I was hopeful MUFON would have done that, and they may have, and I'm just not aware of it. So communication is a big part, and I think we can maybe do a little bit better there. But like I said, there's so many great people in MUFON, and I've had nothing but great experiences with MUFON, and I'm looking forward to the symposium. So hopefully I can be one of those fighters in there pushing for the change and pushing to come back from the dead, so to speak, a little bit, because you're right. We've been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of work. And I'm just like you, Dave. I don't ever think we should charge people for research or to access our old files and that. And that's a sticking point. And I'm not sure what they're doing with that. They're working on a whole new program, and I'm hoping it's going to be a really good, positive program.
My last thing I will say about MUFON, and I apologize if I put you on the spot here with this.
It's okay. I love MUFON.
Well, and trust me, I want to go on record and say I'm a fan too. But for all the negative people out there who have a bad taste in their mouth about MUFON, whether it's John Ventry's racist comments, whether it's Jan Harzan and the alleged charges he is on right now, we have to draw a very, very thick felt pen line between the investigators who are out there doing this for the love of the subject, for the love of trying to find out those answers for people, and the business side of MUFON, which seems to be out of control or not in control of anything that they are doing right now. And I think that too many people get the MUFON name mixed up with everybody in the organization, rather than understanding there's MUFON, the investigative side, then there's MUFON, the board of directors, who use that for the business side. And as long as we could draw the line there, because I know a lot of people in MUFON, and even members of the board of directors who I highly respect, like Tom Whitmore, okay, who I would drive through a brick wall for. We do have to remember, though, that there are good people there, and they may not, even though they're waving the MUFON flag, they may not be supporting what is actually going on in those closed-door meetings, especially the state directors like yourself or the other members of MUFON who are field investigators. I think that's a fair comment.
I think that's absolutely fair. And a lot of times even the state directors really don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And now's a real busy time, too, with the symposium and COVID. And it's been a kind of a funny time, just even within Colorado MUFON, having everything on Zoom and feeling that disconnect. So the whole COVID, just like everybody else in the world, it's hit the organization kind of hard, too, and just the local chapters not being able to meet and get together and all that stuff. And another rumor that some people believe, like you get paid to be a field investigator or you're paid within MUFON, but it's all voluntary. And the majority of people in the organization are there just because they're truly interested in the phenomenon. And like any other club or organization or group, with your local groups, you meet like-minded people, and it's a place to go collaborate and talk and, research and all that. So, overall, for me, it's been a really great experience. But I agree with you, Dave. Definitely, we have mending fences and a lot of improvements and a lot of growth that we can do. We need to get a lot of young new blood in there to kind of, freshen things up a little bit, fluff the pillows. And
I will tell you one thing, and I've told Tom Whitmore this. I would love to run MUFON. I know the exact game plan that I would use, and I mean, you get paid to talk UFOs. And deal with UFOs. That is a dream job for somebody like me, and I think there needs to be some new blood, some new mandate, but that's enough of that. We've got about 20 seconds left. Tell everybody where they can find your information.
It's just my name, Katie, Katie, Grib as in boy, oski.com, katiegraboski.com. You can find my contact information there and a little bit more about me, and the book, Letters of Love and Light, is on Amazon.
Rock and roll. Katie Griboski, we're definitely going to bring you back on Spaced Out Radio some other time, but for now we have to say goodnight to you, katiegraboski.com. Coming up next, I'm warming up the Magic 8 Ball. You get your questions ready. Let's get psychic right after this. Katie Griboski, everybody. Katie Griboski. Great show. Great show.
Dave, that was a lot of fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I can take these off for a second. Oh. I got a lot of hair gel in to hold it in place.
Love it.
Katie, thank you so much for coming on the show. I had, and just reading my audience absolutely loved you. And we had well over 200 people watching each hour. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much for being just a real beautiful, bright star in the sky of UFOs. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate you having me on.
Let's do it again.
Okay, absolutely. You know, I'm constantly researching, I'm constantly digging, and I hopefully will have more and more to talk about as things go on, you know.
Well, if you break that story, I want you to break that story here. Because we're the only ones who will be able to do it with journalistic integrity.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah. That's my cocky side coming out right there.
A little bit more work to do, but when it breaks, I'm hoping it will in the next year or so.
Awesome. You take care. Enjoy your night. Thank you for staying up late, and thank you for being an absolutely incredible interview.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. I hope Canada opens up soon so you can get out here and make it to a symposium.
That is the goal. By God, that is the goal. Oh, and Alan makes a good point. Thanks for having great hair.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Take care, Katie.
All right. Thanks. Good night. Thank you.
All right. Katie Griboski, everybody. How awesome is she? How awesome was she? Space Cow, you suck. Oilers don't suck. Even though we have a terrible goaltender. How do you re-sign Mike Smith for 2 years? The guy is like 56 years old. That was good radio tonight, guys. Good radio. Anya, thank you so much for the super chat. Ozzy Steve, thank you for the pair of super chats. Fapster, Snakes, Jazz, Media Fox, Apollo, and Michael, thank you for the love and support through the super chat tonight. Really do appreciate that. In a few minutes here, once we start introducing the final half hour, please put your questions in capital letters. I am warming up the Magic 8 Ball. So stick around. I know our numbers are starting to drop here because Katie's gone and they're like, we don't want to hear from Fat Dave anymore. No, I know. I know, people, but we still got half an hour of a show. Look at that. We've dropped like 14 people here in the last 38 seconds. Stick around. Ask the Magic 8 Ball a question. You know? That's it. That's all you got to do. Stick around. Oob to Joe's Bane. You've got aliens. Hi, Bombshell Bomber. I can finally see your comment. And you're leaving. Whoa. Did anybody just see that orb? What the hell is that? Is that a moth? It's not an orb. It's a moth. It's a moth. I hate moths. Son of a bitch, I hate moths. Behoff, what's happening? It's a moth to a flame. My wings burn away, you bastard. Where? Stay the hell out of the camera, you jerk. Thank you. Seriously, another one? Got you, you jerk. Hold on. Gotta get rid of this one. And the other one. Got them both. They're gone. They got expelled from the studio. All right. Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are in this beautiful planet we call Earth. We want to say that you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Let's get to our fun night of the night. Fun night of the night? Fun part of the show tonight. Let's try some proper English there, Dave. It's Magic 8 Ball time. All right, it is time for the Magic 8 Ball tonight, where we're going to ask questions from our audience. And we're going to ask the psychic Magic 8 Ball to come on in, as we do every week at this time, to come on in and answer a few questions regarding anything supernatural. Do me a favor, put your questions in capital letters if you're in our chat room, or on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, and we're going to get to it. First question is going to come from Lazarus. Lazarus, will I be successful in my new endeavors? Magic 8 Ball never lies. May play some tricks. We got to go into deep thought about these answers here. Lazarus, will I be successful in my new endeavors? Magic 8 Ball says, let's see here. Intel looks good. Oh, we're ready tonight. Magic 8 Ball's on the ball. Keep doing what you're doing, Lazarus. And the Magic 8 Ball says, it looks good. So, let's figure it out. All right. Ooh, controversial question from Major Lee here. Will Travis Walton come clean about his hoax? I don't think he's hoaxing. I really don't. I think there's somebody trying to get some press. It all starts with Mike Rogers, his former brother-in-law who was driving the truck. And I'm telling you, Major Lee, I love you, but I'm going to disagree with you. Let's see what the Magic 8 Ball says, because one of us is going to be wrong. All right? One of us is going to be wrong. Here we go. Magic 8 Ball says, you may rely on it. Ooh, maybe Travis Walton is telling some lies. Maybe. I don't think so. I'm disagreeing with the Magic 8 Ball here, Lee. I really am. But I could be wrong. I don't think 45 years of throwing your name into the UFO crowd is something that you really want to do. But, been wrong. Adam is asking, will anyone's beard ever compare to his? Now I want to see this beard. And Adam, if you ever decide to shave it, we do have a beard collection here in the studio. One of the gross things we do around here. Adam, your answer is, Intel looks good. Intel looks good. That your beard is undeniably better than anyone here right now. But we are going to need a photograph in order to check this out. We really are. So we're going by the guess of the Magic 8 Ball. We are not going by physical proof of a photograph to prove whether or not the beard fits, so you must acquit. Just saying. All right. Let's move on here. Sandra is asking, will little SOR be an accomplished guitarist? So she's asking about my son, who's a little metalhead. God bless him for that. I call that good parenting on my part. Okay? You know how I punish my son when he's been bad? I threatened to take him to the soccer field. Said, you don't want to be one of them, son. You don't want to be one of them. You're going to be bad. You're going to listen to country music. Take you to the soccer field. All right. Will my son become an accomplished guitarist? Out of fuel. Try again later. So what that really means, Sandra, is this. The boy is only 8 years old, so we can't push him into anything. All right? Can't force that. He's going to find his own destiny, and maybe he will, maybe he won't. But you know what? As long as he has fun playing, that's all that matters. Because I'm telling you right now, it is really cool learning how to rock with my kid. It really is cool learning how to rock with my kid. I'm not going to lie. All right, let's continue on here with the Magic 8 Ball. Let's see. Thank you, Amy Vegas O, for saying there's nothing wrong with the shirt I'm wearing tonight. Appreciate that. All right. Let's go to Double Tim. Were those moths the first of your Studio 7 plagues? Well, I've been getting a lot of moths right now because I don't have a screen on my window. Okay? That's part of the issue. And it gets really warm in here with all the inside the studio with all the equipment going on. So, and I do have a fan in here that keeps me nice and cool, but I do like to have the window open because I like the fresh air. And is this a plague? You have my pity. Apparently, I am hit by a plague, as we see the humor of the Magic 8 Ball agreeing with Tim on that my studio is being hit by a plague of moths. D. Swiger is asking, will I be moving within the year? Nice, honest question here. Magic 8 Ball says, ask again later, because not right now. I don't see it happening right now. And apparently the Magic 8 Ball doesn't agree with that right now either. So, maybe I would ask in a few months, again, D, because we might be getting a little bit closer. Greco asks a power question here. Will Dave finish his book within the next 10 years? Magic 8 Ball says, don't count on it. Thanks, Magic 8 Ball. That means I'm going to have writer's block for the next decade. I should get it out before then. I really should. Michelle is asking, will Australia ever be liberated from being a penal colony so we can go to Vegas with Dave? Well, you're a bunch of crooks over there. Let's just be honest. You're all relatives of bad people. But you're good people. You Aussies are good, even though every animal on your continent wants to kill you, even those in the water. Is Michelle C. coming to Vegas? Out of fuel, try later. And I understand this answer from the Magic 8 Ball, because we don't know what the hell's happening with the border up here, so that way us here in Canada can't get down to the United States right now so we could have our spaced out radio party. Michelle, I'm going to tell you this, though, with great positivity. Let's rephrase that question. Should Michelle start saving up to fly from Australia to Las Vegas for the SOR party? Is it time for her to start saving up money? Magic 8 Ball, come on. It is decidedly so. It is decidedly so. So, Michelle, if you want to come to the Vegas party, it's time to start putting a few bucks away every 2 weeks when you get paid. All right? Just saying. Let's get to another question here. Dave doesn't have bunny slippers, so I can't ask that question. 11. The light in the corner of my living room keeps going out and coming back on. Is there a ghost in here? No. In hypersleep. No ghost. It's called electricity and a bulb that has a problem with it. Yeah. You might want to change your bulb on that one. All right. Space Cow, Magic 8 Ball. Will I find a hot-looking woman this year? All clear, which means there's a good possibility that you are going to be taken off the singles list. My gut feeling, aim for October, November. All right? Try and get through Christmas so at least you get some Christmas presents. All right, let's go to Greco. Does Dave wear his assless chaps to increase his ET abduction rate? The answer is, you have my pity, Greco. In other words, you just got eye-rolled by the Magic 8 Ball for that one. All right? You just got eye-rolled. Kind of like, really? Really? Hey, can't make this stuff up. B. Hoff is asking, Magic 8 Ball, am I being monitored? Well, every day on the internet you are. If you're on Facebook, definitely, or Instagram. Don't count on it. You don't got aliens monitoring you. Sorry, Magic 8 Ball is just, it was quite trite on that one. Don't count on it. What a jerk kind of answer. Who does that? 509 is asking, will West Coast USA be where first contact of aliens happened? From 509. The answer is, out of fuel, try again later, which means no, it's not happening on the West Coast. Mama Susan is asking, will the shots I got today help with the pain? Magic 8 Ball says, signs point to yes, Mama Susan. You're going to start feeling good pretty soon. All right? Fap, by the way, says, soccer is the ultimate threat to hold over your child. I'd rather do 24 hours of math than that. Me too, Fap. Me too. All right. Apollo 11 wants to know, does Dave's little gnome statue, and if you catch us on YouTube, you'll see that I have a gnome over my right shoulder, does it move around on its own? Don't count on it. Nope. Doesn't move on its own. Love that gnome. Love that gnome. All right. Gnome Squatch is asking, I just tried CE5. Should I wear underpants tonight? Ask again later. Maybe the aliens don't want you to wear underpants. Gnome Squatch. No, I don't think they do. George is asking, will ETs ever make themselves known to all humanity? Sensors read no. I think the ball got that one wrong. I really do. I really think the 8 Ball got that one wrong. I don't agree with that answer at all. D. Swiger, do aliens really steal coffee? Sensors read no. It's probably your cat. David Mitchell, 8 Ball, was what I saw on Saturday night a real UFO? The answer is, you may rely on it. Let us know in the chat room what you saw. All right. Greco, are the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Stanley Cup in other dimensions or realities? I'm shaking this, and I guarantee the answer is going to be no. I'm like 100% correct. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it. But no. You got to realize, God hates the Maple Leafs. All right? God hates the Maple Leafs, and we thank God for that. As I see it, yes. Damn it. Apparently, in other dimensions, the Leafs have won the Stanley Cup, just not on our timeline right now. All right, let's see if we got any more here. Let's see. I don't think so. We're not getting political. Let's see here. Do we have any more? Sandra, do aliens wear hoodies? Infinitely yes. It's a nice camouflage. You know? So basically what they're trying to do is they're like FAP. They're trying to hide the size of the head that they have in the hood. Beverly, will we make it a year's end without major upsets? Out of fuel, try again later. Don't know. Not asking that, PBR. And I think we're gonna call it the night on this one. All right, because I can feel the Magic 8 Ball starting to lose some of its steam. And anyways, Captain Shirk will kick my butt if I don't get to the news. Is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the absolute odd. The Lumberjack is a ride in Toronto, all right, at Canada's Wonderland theme park, all right? And it's one of these rides that you go on and it kind of rotates. It looks like a couple of axes. People sit on the outside, and it goes upside down. Well, anyways, the ride got stuck with the people upside down for like 5 minutes. Yeah, it opened in 2018, consists of 2 swinging axe pendulums, gives riders the sensation of an inverted coaster loop, according to Wonderland's website. But what makes it even more thrilling is that the riders face guests on the other side as they loop around and around. So, seeing the horror in increasingly red faces as they were stuck upside down wasn't fun. Yep. Just happens. I wouldn't mind that. I'll be honest with you. Wouldn't bother me whatsoever. I got stuck on a chairlift once at Mount Baker in Washington. Chairlift broke down for like 2 hours. And I was stuck at the highest point. All right, the highest point. Like other people could have just jumped off and went in the powder. Not old Davey. Davey gets stuck on the highest point. All right, I was able to take it. Not a problem. I just sat there and relaxed. A new project seeks to uncover evidence of aliens, not by gazing upon distant star systems, but by finding traces of their technologies inside our solar system and even Earth. Yep. Let's do this thing, right? So, how's this going to happen? It's called the Galileo Project. Avi Loeb is setting it up. We just interviewed him with Lynn Wallington just the other night. You can find that on our archives where he's talking about this. He has announced a goal, Galileo Project that is, has announced its goal of searching for signs of extraterrestrial and technological signatures. But instead of hunting for alien radio frequencies or messages encoded in laser light, as other projects have done, these researchers will be searching for physical objects located nearby. These objects could take form of a passing probe, a small object in orbit around Earth, or unidentified aerial phenomena. Astronomer Avi Loeb from Harvard is the co-founder of the Galileo Project, named in honor of the unfairly maligned 17th century Italian astronomer. You may already be familiar with Avi Loeb because of Oumuamua and appearing on Spaced Out Radio a couple nights ago. And he wants to be able to bring this. He believes the aliens are here. Now we got to go out and find them. So let's go find them. We need to find some aliens. Finally tonight, very cool story. I'm so glad Captain Shirk brought this to my attention. because I love stuff like this. French dad and robotics engineer Jean-Louis Costanza has built a robotic suit for his 16-year-old son Oscar that allows him to walk. Oscar, a wheelchair user, activates the suit by saying, "Robot, stand up," and then it walks for him. Jean-Louis co-founded the company that builds the suit, which can allow users to move upright for a few hours a day. It is used in hospitals in several countries, but isn't available yet for everyday use by individuals. It has a hefty price tag of about $200,000 US. Personal exoskeleton would need to be much lighter, the company's engineers said, but they are working on it. That's what I would love to see, is more people who are paralyzed being able to have the sensation of walking again. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What would you like to experience with extraterrestrials? Josh, nothing at all, ever. Eugene, the truth, who they really are, and their true agenda. Double Bobby, all-you-can-eat buffet with R. Keith Andrews. Cat the Kit, hyperdimensional space folding. Darren, it's not good to ask, as I found out. Tim, tooling around the galaxy. Lori, where they are from and what does the Milky Way look like from space. Will, an anal probe, Strieber style. Magnus, alien drugs. Nah, I mean for real though. I'd enjoy knowing the real history of our planet. If they could show me that, that'd be awesome. Danny, what is their interest involvement with us? Kevin, Dave, I would like to experience some of the extraterrestrial healing, knowledge transfers, and life-changing experiences that would help me have the strength, conviction, and gifts to bring peace, spiritual growth, and prosperity to everyone here. Thank you for everybody participating in the Thought of the Day. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the news, the SOR Newswire, everyone playing along on the 8-ball, and of course, to Katie Griboski as being our guest. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms, YouTube, LGAB, Twitch, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.